Welcome to the Chain Out podcast with your hosts, Jeremy and Darryl.
Oh, we're just going to let it run again. Has nothing to do with the fact that I didn't take it off repeat, Jeremy.
Welcome to the Chain Out podcast with your hosts, Jeremy and Darryl.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast that's so great that we do the opening twice. I'm Jeremy.
Exactly.
And with me, as always, is your wonderful co-host, Darryl. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. The podcast's so good, they introed it twice.
That's right. I think that's good. And it makes sense because it's episode 22. So that's two. That's
There you go.
Look at all this.
Yeah, I knew that really. That's subconsciously.
So we're not starting out, but we're going live again. Mm-hmm. We've already got somebody in the chat. Should I throw out the one and only?
We've got a couple people in the chat.
We got a couple
four people watching.
Oh, wow. Well, welcome everybody who's joined us. Thanks for starting and coming in at the live episode. But rolling into it, Darryl.
Yeah, let's get on with it, Jeremy.
Yeah, I think we've got a great guest, and this is kind of interesting. Was this week we did something different? So because we are going live, we've decided that we don't have a post-produced episode that we can start robbing pieces from and using them for teasers and that. But then when we did that live question and answer, or one of the lives, people said they loved the teasers. They thought that was fun. It built up the episode. So then we recorded a teaser about the guest. And then we went and revealed the guest yesterday. And I think that was the way to do it because there was a lot of excitement for this week's guest. Yeah,
absolutely. And like you said, we don't need to tease the guest because we're going live. We want to let everyone know who the guest is going to be. So you're more than likely want to tune in anyway because we're such a great podcast. But excuse me. Yeah, no, it's taken a bit of, it's one of those periods where it's an overlap, right? So you finish going from the post-produced to going live, but we want to release the same time that we go live. But we still haven't finished the end of the post-produced era. So there was a little bit of an overlap. Now we're kind of back in the seat. We know how to do things now. So we put a little update out on Instagram. So obviously people in the chat right now,
including our guest. If you took a look, he's jumped into the chat. You're getting a preview to the show, I guess. Hey,
might as well give a quick shout out to all the people in the chat. Yeah, Brendan's in the chat. And Ben is in the chat, and also Parked Pro is in the chat as well. Thanks, guys, for listening.
Awesome. Fantastic. But let's get through our intro stuff maybe there so that we can get to the guest, because we know that's what people want.
Yeah. So just give an update. People in the chat will obviously know, but if you're listening later on the post-recorded, Wednesdays, we're recording live like we are right now. The episode, as soon as it finishes, it'll be available on YouTube to watch. And if you like to listen to the podcast, you will be able to listen to it next day, probably, I'm going to say from 6 a.m. on the Thursday.
Yeah.
There you go.
So what we wanted to do ahead of time here is for our local listeners is one of the things that's now going to be kind of a part or a staple of our episodes is the update on the number one tag. So the Edmonton Disc Golf Association tag number one. Where is it? What's happening with it?
Used to be the winter update. It was the putting league update. Now it's going to be the number one tag update.
Right. And I think when we interviewed Matt Dwyer, that was where we last left it. And he managed to, even with Brock Cicchetti getting an ace in a round at Niska, it still wasn't good enough to beat Matt Dwyer.
No.
So Matt Dwyer had the number one tag. And then our buddy Mark Thompson, friend of the show, he said,
we talked about this last episode. He challenged him.
Yep. And then did we talk about what happened though?
No,
I don't think we did.
It hadn't come out yet. Yeah, go ahead.
So that Friday, which was a lot like today in Edmonton, it started to snow and they went out to Wildman, and it was Matt Dwyer's first time at Wildman. And it looked like a pretty heated competition, back and forth. Matt starting out with a couple birdies, Mark starting out with a bogey. But as they went through and kept playing hole after hole after hole, Mark pulled ahead and then managed to hold that lead right to the end. And friend of the show, Mark Thompson.
There you go. Yeah, like you said, he had a bit of the home field advantage a little bit, but managed to pull out the win. He has the number 1 tag.
Yep. So then what happened? Why don't you share with the listeners what's happened since then? Because it kind of involves you and I.
Yeah. So I'm not sure the exact timeline, whether anyone else got to challenge him before then, but I know that we're now doing Rundle League, the Thursday night Rundle League in Edmonton. It's our first time doing it. And yeah, friend of the show, Mark, was on our card as well. And somebody who I've never played with before or met, but Ash Perry was our 4th on our card.
Yeah.
And we went out there, and we, as it's customary that if you're playing in the league, you're playing for tags. And I'm of the persuasion that I don't like to know scores. I don't like to know it at halfway. I don't like to know it on hole 16 or 17. I don't like to know what I have to do. But given the feeling of the round, I was playing pretty good. I only bogeyed 1 hole, old hole 18, or I guess hole 18 at Rundle.
Yes.
So I knew I was playing pretty clean. Turns out.
That was your puppy.
It was coming down to the wire. Hole 7, there was a few birdies and bogeys towards the end on the last 2 or 3 holes.
Yes, there was.
And then it came down to the last throw, pretty much the last throw on the last hole. Mark, what was that, hole 12? Because we started 12. On 13. Hole 12, or original hole 12.
Yep.
Through his zone, which he had a bit of a love-hate relationship with it during that round. Ended up parking it under the basket. I went a little bit long on my throw, so I had to come back putt. Made it for birdie, and wasn't until after both Mark, had a tap-in birdie as well, that we ended up tying for the tag.
Yes.
But that wasn't the big deal for me. The big deal for me was the fact that when we tied, I broke my record. My previous record at Rundle was +1. And for whatever reason, whether I like playing wind or whatever it was, but I ended up with a -2.
Yes.
And Mark -2 as well. So we tied for the tag, and we had to go to the steward's inquiry. But apparently, if you tie for the tag, you don't win the tag.
That's right. Like, we were thinking that, okay, you've got your best score you've ever had at Rundle, -2. Yeah. You've tied Mark for the number 1 tag. It's overtime, baby. Let's go to playoff holes. And we found out that was not the case, and Mark got to keep the tag.
Yeah, but that's okay.
Yeah,
I was like I said, I was more happy the fact that I had the best round of my life at Rundle, beating my previous record by 3 shots. So,
and out of the 2 of us, you're the first one to actually break par at Rundle. So congratulations.
Yeah,
buddy.
We've come close. Mine was a +1. Yours is an even.
Yeah.
So yeah, it can be done, Jeremy.
It can be. Now, the last thing for the number 1 tag update, because there was a lot of stuff that happened with it, is that tomorrow at 4:00 p.m., Mr. Tim Plamondon, president of the Edmonton Disc Golf Association, has thrown down the gauntlet and said, "Mark Thompson, you show up. I'm going to challenge you for that tag." I was going to say I'm going to take that tag. That's probably what he's thinking, but he's got to beat him to take it. So
no, I mean, comes with the territory, right? If you got the number 1 tag, you've got to be open to all challengers, whether it be somebody you think you can beat or whether you think you're going to get slammed by them. But it's still early on in the season, right? So even if Mark does get beat by, whether it might be by Tim or anybody else on the card, because we don't know who else is going to be on the card with him yet. Yeah. Plenty more weeks to re-challenge back and then take that tag back again.
So I guess, I don't know, we can throw it out there. As far as I know, there aren't 2 other players on that card yet. So maybe you need to get into the Discord channel for EDGA and throw your own gauntlet down and see if you can join that card for the challenge.
Sounds fair to me.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening to that part about it. Darryl, let's throw out a quick social shout out.
Yeah. Follow us anywhere. Instagram, _podcast, everywhere else. Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you want to find us. Chain Out Podcast.
Yeah, and we're
please
always
leave a review on Spotify or Apple, and subscribe on YouTube.
That's right. Well, let's do it. Let's get to the guest.
No more faffing, Jeremy.
All right, you guys may have, if you were paying attention to the reels, you may have heard this intro, but here it goes again. This week's guest is an Alberta MPO who has been a PDGA member since 2009. That's 15 years. He is constantly competing and placing top 10 in Western Canadian tournaments and Northwestern US tournaments. He commentates for Parked Pro. If you do see him at a tournament, there's a good chance his friend Casey Hannemeyer may also be there. He won last year's Falcon's flight tournament for the second time. We are excited to welcome Ben Loggains to the show.
Good evening, good afternoon, Ben. How are you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Awesome. Now
fantastic.
that you're here.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I was watching the stream in the other window there almost.
Yeah, that was awesome. I think you're the first guest that we've ever had that's actually watched us live before. So yeah, that was pretty cool to see you in the chat.
Yeah, and that's we're learning lots of new things with this whole podcasting thing, being that this is episode 22 now. We're always talking about continuous improvement, and one of those things is going live. So yeah, that's a cool new feature is, hey, the guests can go in and kind of chat up the room for a bit before they come on. That's amazing.
Yeah. Live definitely adds a big element. I know the other podcasts that even put a lot of money into streaming live, it just seems like there's always issues.
Well, maybe they don't have a Darryl on their team like I do.
Oh, you're right. Well, usually the issues are caused by the guest because the guest doesn't usually, have a tech person on the road with them when they're. I listen to Nick and Matt show, which is now the Staggered Stance podcast.
Yeah.
And every time they get a guest calling in from an RV somewhere in Canada, the quality isn't always that great.
Yeah. I think who's it been there, Darryl? We've heard Gannon a few times where they just give up on him and they tell him, call us again next time.
Yeah. I think it's normally Gannon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be the guest. Sometimes it could be the co-host as well. Right, Jeremy?
Yeah.
Yes, it can be. Sometimes the co-host can have the mute button on and not realize it's something as simple as that.
Yeah.
So how's it? You're out in Cranbrook, right, Ben?
Yep.
What's it like? We've been getting some pretty crazy weather here. Are you getting into some normal spring weather, back to disc golf weather?
Yeah, for sure. Back to disc golf weather. Cranbrook's, spring can sometimes come really early here. It's a drier climate, but it isn't necessarily a lot warmer than other parts of Western Canada. So some years we can have like bare ground, no snow, even though it's -10 for, and like really good playable conditions, even in February, some years in January. But this year's spring was a bit later than that. We didn't get like a super early spring, but I'd say it's typical. Yeah.
So
we've had some 20-degree weather already, I think, even the last week and a half.
You've had 20 as a high already?
Yep.
Nice.
Yep. Not today. It's cooler and cloudy and more typical spring right now, but yeah, it's been nice out.
That makes it awesome, right? That makes it a lot more easier to get out and play, a lot more in better conditions, right? We played all year, but some days we regretted it going out there in -20, -30, walking around in the boots, clearing the snow off the tee pads, things like that. Like, does it do anything for your game? I don't know. It's good because we can get out and play, but it's not really improving our form.
I think there's something to be gained from winter golf. There's definitely like stuff you can mess up playing winter golf, but I think the like challenge of throwing tee shots with poor footing is like good practice for when you go to play more difficult courses where you're more par 4 golf.
Yeah,
you like learn to throw powerful shots from bad footing. It's an important skill. Not necessarily slippery footing, but uneven footing. It used to be that like Big Bear didn't have tee boxes. Like that was like one of the premier tournaments in Western Canada. Still is, but it was the premier tournament in Western Canada. And you had horrible footing on all of the tees. And I don't know, a lot of us weren't ready for that. To throw the biggest shot of each hole from bad footing was like, what? I haven't made a mistake on the side of a mountain in the rough. It feels like.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I played a whole year once where we played every single day for the whole winter, but those days are behind me. I didn't throw a disc once from the last tournament I played in October until maybe 2.5-3 weeks ago. It was the first time I threw again.
Okay.
I didn't even
Wow.
putt. I didn't go to putting league. Awesome putting league here in town that Christy Shields runs. It's awesome. We rent out the soccer dome. It's really great. And even that, I just too busy and was taking a full break.
And do you think that,
and there's a benefit to that as well, right?
yeah, do you think that full break kind of gives you a better energy when you start the season, where you're not feeling worn out or burnt out from trying to play all the way through?
Yeah, at my age, especially, like, I mean, I shouldn't say at my age. I'm sure some people are in better shape than I am at my age. I'm 41 now, 42.
You're the spring chicken of the podcast at the moment, Ben.
Okay. But I mean, and even like my age in disc golf, it's like I've thrown so many shots that at this point, like, the prep help as much as rest. It's like I know how to throw. It's like as long as I'm not injured, it's usually good now.
Good.
So
now, when you were getting out here in the last 2.5, 3 weeks, one of the courses that we've heard on Park Pro and on some of the other podcasts when they talk about Cranbrook is the college course, and it's always like revered and held really high that it's a fun and difficult course. Is that where you tend to go out and do most of your playing in Cranbrook?
I do split my playing time up pretty equally between our 3 courses here. So, like, the Wycliffe course is the most.
You had to jinx it, didn't you, Jeremy? Ben, if you can hear us, we were talking about staggered stance and Gannon losing connection, being in an RV. It didn't look like you were in an RV, but you are. We did lose you. You've kind of broken up and frozen up a bit there.
Yeah, we'll just give it a sec maybe for you to come back in there. And we'll see how that reconnects. And there's probably not much we can do. Hey, Darryl?
Have you ever played the Cranbrook course, Jeremy?
No, I haven't gotten out that far. The furthest I've gotten out to has been over to Radium area. And I got to play Nipica is what I got to play there.
Okay, you keep filling, Jeremy. I'm just going to message Ben.
All right, sounds good. So yeah, when I got out to play Nipica, and I know that's also a course that they've talked about on Park Pro, it's an amazing course that is part of a cabin area that's there. It's like a remote little area just outside of Radium, but you're playing up on an edge of a river. And I actually made the mistake on one of my rounds of tossing a disc that I thought was going to maybe do a little S-curve, but it did a really hard meat hook hyzer and went down the hill, and I thought it was lost forever. But I was able to actually go down and walk along that riverbank, and had my son with me, and we actually found a couple discs down there. So it was kind of an interesting thing about the course there. But
yeah, no, I've never played anywhere west of Spruce Grove.
Okay. Well, I'm seeing here that Brock has said he's in the chat there, and he said he played Cranbrook last year, had lots of fun gaps to throw over. So throwing over gaps, hey? Well, and throwing over gaps there, Darryl, that would be maybe reminiscent of what I've heard Grand Prairie is like. Apparently that's a really hard course, and there's some trees and such too that you got to throw over.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of people talk about the Grand Prairie course.
Yeah.
Okay, I might just need to get Ben to disconnect and reconnect again. He is on Wi-Fi, so that's probably why we're having some.
Well, okay. Well, another thing that I can reveal as we're talking too is that in the past, when we've done our shows that were pre-recorded, and I think one of our big listeners here who was in first was Brendan McKinstry, can attest to it, is sometimes the internet doesn't quite work the way we want it to. And then, you come up with magical solutions in that. But the thing is that we can kind of cut and paste and edit them, throw a guy with a fake mustache on in the middle, and nobody's any wiser about what was going on. But when you are live, then now this is where Darryl gets to put his expertise into play.
So you put it on me when things work good, but then when they don't work good, that's where the pressure comes and I have to try and fix it.
Well, you can't just have all the kudos. You have to actually have, the troubleshooting and everything too, right?
I have to earn it a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think even with Ben, when we were just talking to him there, and he was saying, "Oh, there he is. Is he back?"
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. You're cutting in and out a little bit. So first you were cutting in and out. I thought it might have been your headphones if they're Bluetooth. I thought they were losing connection, but then your picture froze up and glitched, and we lost you.
And go ahead now, and let's see if we can hear you all right.
Oh, he may be changing cameras, maybe changing microphones.
Look at this. He's even good on the fly. This is,
yeah.
The guest has got the
This
skills.
is where we need to keep
check a
filling in,
couple
Jeremy.
things. All right. Well, with the filling in, we talked a little.
I can hear you now.
Oh,
Okay,
baby.
there
Yeah,
you
we
go.
can hear you loud and clear.
We're back.
We're
back.
Okay,
back.
we're back.
So
seamlessly.
What did I miss?
a whole bunch of
Well,
filling.
we missed a
Okay.
lot because we were waiting to hear. You said that there's 3 courses that you'd like to play. Wycliffe was one of them.
in
I think that's
Cranbrook,
where
we've
we
got
kind of
3
ended
main
on.
courses.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got the perfect spectrum from easy to hard. Cranbrook, I'm originally from North Carolina. That's not something you may know, but I moved to Cranbrook when I was 22 years old in 2005.
Yeah.
And the only course that was the college course that you'd mentioned. And so it's a par 3 course that's just the perfectly designed normal par 3 course back in the day. So at the time it was as good as it got, and that was the type of golf that's typical, 2 to 100 to 350 foot holes, all par 3s, but we had 18 holes of baskets and 18 holes with concrete tee pads, which I think at the time it was the only course in British Columbia that had 18 baskets and 18 actual tees. But since then we put in the Wycliffe course in 2017. That's championship level, but you need a couple 2.5 hours to make it through, and it's a physical endeavor.
Yeah.
Wow.
And par 61, I think, or 62.
Wow.
And then we installed the Idlewild course, which was at a busier park. So the choice we made there was to make all the holes sub 200 feet. So it's player, the goal is to shoot 18 under. Every par feels like a bogey, but
Gotcha.
all the shots make a lot of sense. They're really interesting tiny holes that force forehands or low ceilings or uphill, downhill. So it's still really great for skill development. And so I've got 2 kids that like to play as well, and my son's much more interested than my daughter, but
Right.
so I play at Idlewild quite a bit, the short course with them, and then as much as I have the time and the physical energy, I go out to Wycliffe. But then the college ends up being the medium of those, where that's the course that I get the most invites socially to go play at, is the middle one.
Is the middle one? Yeah.
Yeah, the college.
Well,
and there was just a tournament there this past weekend.
Okay, which tournament was that?
It's called the Rusty Scholar. The boys from Park Pro, they run a little, just a series of C tiers, low entry fee, low barrier of entry, just to kind of knock the rust off and get used to competing again in the spring. So I won that event last year. I came from last place after the first round to winning,
Wow.
which was thanks to the weather. The weather went bad and no one else was really playing well. Casey was there and he only shot -5, which is about as bad as he can play.
Okay.
Yeah. But then this year I missed it for work. I was on a train. So.
Gotcha. Well, you know what there, that's you've segued me pretty good here, Ben, is because one of the things we want to do is get into your origin story, but we kind of try to make it a little bit fun. We've done origin stories where I try to figure out something that maybe is similar to your origin story. It gives you a chance to kind of listen to me make things up and maybe think about what you want to say. So I've tried it with superheroes in the past, and I've kind of moved on to movies. Now, Darryl had no clue about this one, but we'll see if you can figure it out.
Okay.
All right, here we go. It's a little one, so let's get going here. Maybe you were a casual disc golfer that decided to become a train conductor. As a new hire, you were on a routine train run when you were asked to pull into a siding to let another train pass. That train wasn't just passing. It was a runaway train, heading for a dangerous elevated curve in the tracks. You and your grizzled engineer of a boss use your train to catch up and couple up to the runaway train. Running across train cars toward the locomotive, you saw that time was running out. Luckily, you had a disc on you and you threw it 200 feet on a perfect hyzer flip into the most intense headwind you have ever seen. The disc flew deftly through the open door, hit the brake, and stopped the train before calamity could ensue. This heroic act cemented you as a legend in both the train and disc golf worlds. So maybe that's not exactly how you got into disc golf, but why don't you tell us if I was close and how you really did?
Was that a Chat GPT story? I have to ask.
No, that was a Chat Jeremy Power story. I just have to read my script that I write. That's all.
Apparently, that's an actual movie.
Realistic. So I'm an engineer now, hired on as a conductor. Into that job from people I met playing disc golf here. So yeah, that's the thing that keeps me away from playing more tournaments than I do. But no, my disc golf origin story started, I guess, as early back as I can remember. I was in high school. Wow. So I think I first heard about disc golf in maybe 1998, and was immediately very interested, hearing that there were discs that were for putting and for driving. And I remember seeing the old Lightning discs that had the helix and the roller and the number one driver.
Wow.
And I just thought, that sounds insanely cool. You can throw a disc and different ones will do different things. Because I played Ultimate in high school. I played a lot of Frisbee catch with my grandma. So I have a very young, very athletic grandma who taught me to play basketball, and I still play basketball with my grandma.
Awesome.
And I'm down to visit in North Carolina. And so she played hours and hours of catch Frisbee, which then turned into me being obsessed with Ultimate in high school. And then I was working in a cell phone store in, I think, the year 2000.
Okay. Oh, so right after Y2K and stuff, and we realized that the cell phones weren't going to explode or anything.
That's right. And we had a customer come in that me and my friend that I worked with, we just got chatting and we were instantly friends with this customer at the store. And the night that I met him, his name was Jonathan Landerman.
Okay.
And he said, somehow disc golf came up, and he was like, I've played, I know how to go, there's a course. And we closed the store and went to a store that sold disc right then. And then we went to a course and played. And I beat the guy that took me. But by cheating a lot, I'm sure, like throw again until it's good. But yeah, I remember I shot like plus 13 my first round ever. I was definitely taking some mulligans, maybe a lot of them.
Right.
But yeah, first disc was a DX Cheetah.
Okay.
It was a KC Pro, like 9-time or 10-time KC Pro Cheetah, but it was tie-dye, which was, I was only using disc tie-dye. That was number one priority. And then I remember the discs that they had to choose from, it was like one said very straight driver, and one said very, very straight, very long driver. And then the other one said ultra straight, ultra long driver. And so that's what I went with. Ultra straight and ultra long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, that's
of those.
Sorry.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's what we want, right? One of the hardest throws is to throw it long and straight.
Yeah. And so they just write lies on the disc, and then you
And so have any of those managed to stay in your collection, maybe go into a vault or something? Do you have any of the original discs that you started out with?
Well, the Cheetah, I definitely threw that one. The first disc I ever had, I had it up until maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh,
Because it became a really great roller disc. Like I could throw it without even a lot of power and back end, and it would flip over. And yeah, I lost that one down in Troy, Montana.
okay.
On the 18th hole of one of the best rounds I've ever played, I was like, I needed a birdie on the last hole to shoot a 39, which I'd never shot a 39 before.
Okay.
Um,
Wow.
I threw a great drive. It looked like I threw a backhand roller. It looked like it curled up around the basket and then got up there and it was just gone. I don't know.
Huh.
I looked around for an hour and couldn't find it.
Yeah, and never got a call or anything like that either, eh? So, well, someone probably
No.
saw it and saw, this is Ben Loggains' disc? I'm keeping this thing.
I don't think so, but
No.
I'd love to think so, but no.
Well, we can pump
No.
your tires a bit. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Well, when you were speaking there, Ben, about playing basketball with your grandma and that, I don't know if this leads into it, but one of the things that as soon as we mentioned your name, whether it was in anything we were talking about with Instagram posts, that kind of thing, or when I've talked to other people, first thing people say is Benny Buckets is what they say. So is that part of the origin of it, or where did that come from?
Yeah. I way more out to try big basketball than basketball. Senselessly did. But it was never going to shake.
Could you do us a favor, Ben?
Yeah.
You are cutting in and out. We're having a hard time hearing you, but it's only when you speak.
Okay.
So I'm wondering if it could be your headphones.
I can.
Do you have those Google Buds
I can
hanging around?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever had anybody on the podcast with a nickname before, Jeremy. So
Yeah.
interesting to see where the actual nickname comes from.
See if I
Yeah,
can
we'll get-
connect them.
We'll get a little recap
This will
of
be
that.
riveting entertainment for the folks.
You know what, though? It's the one thing that's nice about it, too, is everybody gets to see us dance on the spot a bit. But then afterwards there, I'm sure Darryl can possibly work a little magic maybe afterwards for the...
We'll see what we can do.
We can see. So I think with the Benny Buckets one there, we'll have to maybe get a recap of that. But it did sound like it was a little bit.
It's kind of funny from his
basketball.
story, though, that he used to work in a cell phone store and someone came in and said, "Hey, yeah, I play disc golf." And they just shut up the store and went to go play disc golf.
Yes, and just that was that. Yeah, and the thing is it's funny. We've talked about it before. I know is that I got introduced to disc golf back then, and I just wish it had bit me the way it bit me in the last 3 years. And I don't know what that is, why that is for some people more than others. It's just a timing thing. Yeah. But, you know, going out to Vancouver and playing a course there, and from what I understand, it's a good course and we'd love it if we went out there. But just at that time, I didn't get hit with it the same way. Yeah.
No, and I, you know, everyone knows my story that I got into disc golf very late. I watched it a long time, but yeah, I don't know, maybe if I did know about it, you know, I definitely knew about Ultimate, but that just didn't take my fancy and didn't ever thought about trying to play that. So whether if I did know anything about disc golf earlier on, maybe I would have enjoyed it. Maybe I would have tried to play it and, you know, would not have liked it and never came back to it. So maybe we just all get into things at the right time.
Yes. Hey.
Okay. Any better?
I think that's better.
Okay.
Yeah. So you were just saying about your your basketball career that was coming your way.
Yeah, in my lifetime, there's not been anyone in my particular demographic of short and white, my height, order, and color to be in the NBA. So, but I love the game. Yeah, coaching my kids now, I'll still skip disc golf anytime for the chance to play ball. But
okay,
yeah, I'm definitely not in the same percentage of skill levels on a basketball court as I am at a disc golf course.
Right. There you go.
Yeah, we can't all be good at the sport that we want to play.
Yeah,
it's true.
Well, and that was another point that you had mentioned there. So it was Greensboro, North Carolina. That's where you grew up.
Yep, that's right.
So, and really because disc golf has been out there has it been out there since the early 80s? It's been, or even earlier than that, or?
Yeah, there was definitely like the time that I was talking about, like 1999 or so, it definitely was growing a lot. So I think it was transitioning then from being a very obscure thing to a thing that college kids were getting into.
Okay.
So I think, and I should say college boys were into. So it was like around that time it was exploding, among the university crowd, I would say there.
Well,
and that's kind of how it picked up to you when you guys met at the cell phone store and then played that first round.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was about that age. And there were already several courses to choose from. There was a course really close to my parents' house in High Point, North Carolina. So I actually grew up. Do you guys know who David Wiggins Jr. is? Does that name ring a bell?
oh yeah.
Yep.
Long
Farthest throwing human in history.
Yeah.
So he was like around the time that I was learning to play and just playing with my friends and not knowing the rules. He was on the same little course, the Johnson Street disc golf course in High Point.
Okay.
And he lived in the same exact neighborhood, like maybe 8 houses down, but he was a 7-year-old boy then at the same time.
Right.
So we were in the same cul-de-sac playing the same course. He was just better than me when he was 10. But we heard lots about him and his dad and his mentors.
Right.
But I wasn't even showing up for like a Sunday doubles at the time. I wasn't even at that point.
Yeah. And it kind of, go ahead there, Darryl.
No, I was just going to say, I have to ask, did you go back to the cell phone store and reopen it up? Did you go back the next day or did you never go back again?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. My uncle owned the cell phone store. So that was the job that I had from the time I was. So.
Oh, okay. So there was some leeway there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until you ended up in Cranbrook from when we were looking at your PDGA start of 2009. One of the things we like to do with anybody who's played for quite a while and has been a member is just kind of test a little bit of their knowledge. Not to put you on the spot too much, but do you remember the first PDGA tournament that you entered?
Oh, I think we lost your audio again, Ben.
Well, the other thing too, Darryl, is we'll continue to work on this here, but what do you think that one was?
Are your earpods still connected? Because your audio is gone altogether now. We can see you now. You're crystal clear now. We just can't have one or the other. We could hear you, but you look like a potato. Now, or so you're using a webcam like a potato, should I say. Now we can see you crystal clear, but we can't hear you. We're gonna let you fix it, and we're gonna let you try whatever you need to try. If you need to reconnect can you hear us? Okay. Give me a nod. Well, he left, so that's okay.
Well, this has been interesting so far. Every time we get a chance to talk to Ben, we're getting some great information. I just want to mine into that. But maybe we're learning another thing too is cell service or web service in Cranbrook is maybe, trying to get over that mountain all the way to Edmonton. It's just
I think he's on the same provider Brendan uses.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well,
while we're waiting for Ben to rejoin, I just want to put it out to the chat that if you look at the top of the chat window, there is a question and answer box that you can submit your questions to Ben. So if we get a chance to ask him any questions at the end, put them in there. If anything comes up relevant, we'll throw that out to him as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess as we're looking at some other information here, do you want to just maybe start talking a little bit about how our latest and greatest 3-hole disc dice challenge had gone?
Why don't we do that, Jeremy? Yeah. So for people that follow us on Instagram, you may have noticed that it's not every week, but we do try and get ours whenever we can. We do get out normally on a Saturday morning. We've been doing some Instagram lives, and we've been doing some 3-hole disc dice challenges. And we've done a few at Hermitage, and we've done one at Rundle.
Yes.
And yeah, we've had interesting people come with us. We've done one on our own.
Yep.
We've had listener to the show, Kevin Topping. He came out for one. We had Zoe Lorenz Bozer join us for the last hole of the one that we did on our own.
Yep.
We've had friend of the show, Mark Thompson. He came out and joined us for 3 holes, 1, 2, and 3, winter layout at Rundle.
And then Tyler Edwards came out that day and joined us for that last hole.
Tyler was at the end of that one, yeah.
So, and what we've tried to do is each time we do it, we're trying to do 3 different holes. So we did holes 1 to 3 at Hermitage, then 4 to 6. And then most recently here, we ended up doing holes 7 to 9.
Yeah.
And that was
Hermitage.
just you and I at Hermitage.
Yeah.
And this one was a little bit nicer to us. We thought those disc dice were loaded with putter roller was where they were weighted by Mike Carey. He must have, when he 3D printed, he put more plastic in that side of the bottom side of that dice for that. But it didn't work out this way. We had a much better round. I think we even did someone have a birdie, I think, or at least we were parring with that.
Yeah. I think for us, parring when you're forced to throw, driver Anheuser from 75 feet away, pars feel like birdies.
That's right.
But yeah, we'd like to know if anybody does watch the Instagram lives and what you think about it, or is it something that you watch after the fact? Do you watch the Instagram lives, the posts that go up on Instagram after we've done them? Do you like them? Is there anything else you'd like to see us do instead? Would you like us to do maybe like an ace challenge? Maybe we can just set the camera up and see how many discs we can throw in 15 or 20 minutes and see how many not aces we get.
Yes, and then maybe if we do get one, it'll be on an Instagram live, and especially with Darryl still chasing his first ace. It hasn't been yet a year yet, right? So, by a year we're going to say, oh my, is this thing ever going to happen? But
well, it's funny because other people that we've had on have said, oh yeah, I went quite a while without getting one. I went like 6 months, and then I got 2 or 3 in a row, and I think it's been over a year. March of 2023 is when I really got my own disc and started playing. I've hit chains a couple times, but no elusive no hole-in-one ace run for me yet.
Well, and as we've talked about before, sometimes they happen in the strangest ways. So maybe it's not exactly the way you were planning to do it, but they still happen.
Yeah.
And so Ben is such a trooper. Thank you for keeping and working with us on this.
Okay. We'll see.
Whatever you've done is 100% better. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Okay.
Yeah, you're perfect. You're good.
There you go.
Whatever I've done has worked.
Yeah, you're looking good. You're sounding good. You're looking stable. And I don't want to jinx it too much, but
okay. This is just on the phone. I ditched the iMac and I'm just on the phone now.
Okay, great. So when we were talking there, when we lost you the last time, I was just kind of throwing it out there and seeing if you remembered what your first PDGA tournament was. And I kind of thought maybe what you did was you just kind of went, oh, I can't hear you here. I'm just going to go off for a second. And now you probably come back all prepared.
That's exactly what happened. Okay, no. So my first PDGA event, I definitely remember it. So, because I ended up there because of going to Big Bear. So back in the day, the Big Bear was the biggest tournament. That's the event in Canmore.
Right.
And I had met a guy that talked at the Cranbrook course who had talked me into going to play tournaments. And so he told me about the Big Bear and said, you got to go there. And then when I went there, then you meet people, right? I was hearing rumors from the folks in Kamloops that they had a tournament called the Ultra Glide, and that Dave Feldberg was going to be there. And so I said, who is Dave Feldberg? He's like, he's the world champ. He was just on Conan O'Brien. Wow. So then I went home and found the clips of the Conan O'Brien show and was like, what? There was a disc golfer on there. And then I learned about who Dave Feldberg was. And then I felt like I had to go to the Ultra Glide in Kamloops.
Well, that's perfect.
Yeah. And so then I think it was Carrie Neal It was the first tournament that I ever had to sign up for ahead of time,
Right.
because at that time it was just show up day of, right? Pay your
Right.
money
Yeah.
and play. And so it was because of Kerry Neal saying, if you want to play in this tournament, you have to be a PDGA member and you have to sign up ahead of time. So that's
Okay.
why I joined the PDGA.
Do you remember what year that was?
2009, I think.
You got it.
Man, he's got it.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we had one other question for you, but you must know it. But do you know who won that tournament?
Oof. Oh, it would have been Felberg for sure.
It was Dave Feldberg.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was Felberg. And I was
Yeah, he's the
enjoying
reason
it.
I made the trip.
Yeah. Well, and I was enjoying too with that, Ben, was looking through who was in the tournament and some of the players that we recognized their names. So for us, Chad Gamlin was there, and he's a
Yeah.
local MPO player in Edmonton
Yeah.
area. And then Dave Ross was another name that I recognized. I think he's out of Vancouver, if I'm remembering right. And
Yeah, and Gamlin. So you'll notice Gamlin's PDGA number is very, very close to mine. It's within 20 or 30 numbers, I think. And if you talk to Gamlin about his PDGA story, it's pretty similar to mine, that he was at Big Bear, heard about the tournament, and got a PDGA number so he could play in that event as well. So
there you go. So then that's probably, there's a whole bunch all right around the same time, and they were all going to Ultra Glide, I'm guessing.
it's true. Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Well, Ben, we also wanted to talk to you about a couple of your tournaments from last year. And one of them, and I know you meet a lot of people. It's probably like, you're a basketball coach there. You got a lot of players that play for you, or if you're a teacher, there's a lot of students and stuff. But both Darryl and I had a chance to have a brief interaction with you at the Edmonton Open last year when you were there supporting that as part of Gander.
Yep.
Yeah. And
yeah, that event's wonderful. I'm just always impressed when events are run well, more than anything else nowadays. Just when you're at a spot, it just really makes you want to support a tournament when the folks that are running it obviously really, really care. I've TD'd only one event ever, and I think it's a good idea for everyone to do once, because then not that you won't have criticisms of tournaments, but you'll
understand a lot more.
Yeah. You'll say, at least you'll preface your criticisms with, I would never do better, but so
if you were looking for unsolicited advice.
Yeah. But knowing how hard it is, it just makes it even more impressive when folks are doing it well, because even doing a bad job is a lot of work. So I was just really, really impressed with the team there, the course owners at Bailey's Crossing, and their level of commitment to making it the best that they possibly can be. Because it's year-round work, right? To have an event run that well and a course look that nice.
Yeah. What did you think of the course? I know me and Jeremy got out there a few times last summer. We're thinking about maybe getting some membership out there this year and going out there and playing more regularly. I know we really like it. It's a challenging course. Lots of open holes, wooded holes. What did you think of it when you played out there?
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. My favorite thing is always anytime you have mowed grass in a forest. To me, that's like the pinnacle of disc golf. It's the best of both worlds. It's just so beautiful. Like when there's the grass down the middle of aspen trees, especially, it's just, I think aspen trees are the best obstacle in disc golf, and grass is the nicest surface, so aspen trees, because they grow so close together, the way that they're a cloned, one organism, right? The trunks are so close together, you don't really get lucky and cut through a whole stand of aspens.
No, that's true.
But then at the same time, if you throw your disc into them, it isn't miserable getting in there to get it. Like, you're not going to risk injury climbing into aspens, right? They don't cut you up or anything.
Yeah.
So I think they're quite a pleasant but impossible obstacle to get around. So that's always a plus to me, just seeing grass and aspen trees. And then the width of the fairways on the wooded holes there, I think, is quite fair, and it's not too wide, not too narrow. And I would say that currently the difficulty level For our Alberta scene, for an MPO field that's averaging like 970 rating, it's probably perfect for that. But it's definitely not like exceptionally challenging for sure. Like it's one of those courses that the top 4 or 5 players in our MPO field, like for the Casey Max, Noah type players, it's like they really are disappointed not birdieing every hole,
Yes.
But that's just where we're at right now. I don't know that it's wise to be designing it for a better field, I don't know. Our top end of the MPO field, I think, always wants to play courses that are Pro Tour ready, but we ourselves aren't Pro Tour ready, so it probably doesn't make sense.
Fair
We
enough.
just lead to backup.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the course. I think it's really fun. I think it's really fair. And yeah.
I know for me, whenever I've played out there before, my score is never any, it's never where I want it to be, but it's probably good for an MA40 player that's only been playing for a year. But having
You've only been playing for a year?
Yeah, I started in March last year. Yeah.
Wow, I did not realize that.
Yeah. Isn't that what you do? You play for a year, then you started a podcast talking about disc golf? Yeah.
We thought everybody did
I'm a little behind.
Yeah. But yeah, going out there and playing and being able to play to our level of ability and then have MPOs come out and play it. And I just looked it up right now. Whenever me and Jeremy have been out there, we're hoping to get +5 to +10, somewhere around that. But then when you see Casey win the tournament with -31, it kind of really kind of sets you apart, and you're like, okay, now I can see the gap in between, how the pros can play a course and how we play a course.
Yeah, I can tell you for sure. So when Casey and I are driving home, we think the course is too easy.
Right.
But if you look at the scores for the field average, it tells a different story. But I just think from a fun standpoint for players that have all the shots, because that's the thing is the MPO field for the most part, you've got a whole bunch of guys that have for the most part all the shots you need to be on the Pro Tour, just not the consistency to be on the Pro Tour. Casey is a different animal. He does have everything he would need to be on the Pro Tour. But for the rest of us, it's really just we can make all of those shots sometimes, just not 95% of the time like the guys in the Pro Tour can.
Right.
So it's the most fun thing to always be presented with that top tier challenge, because that's what you want to measure yourself against, right? So I definitely feel that way. It's like, oh, if this tee box was another 150 feet back, or whatever.
Yeah, just tighten this gap a little bit more or something like that too. I know we got to see when you guys were there, especially Darryl, he was actually spotting on hole 16, which was towards the end. It was a really big, hard dog leg to the left. And he's talked about it a couple times, but he watched Noah throw it the whole, just say, who cares? I'm going to go straight at the basket. I don't even know where it is, but I'm still going to go straight for it. Hey, Darryl?
Yeah. On that hole, the MPO tee is at the top of a hill, and then it's a dog leg left. Most players from either tee pad really are just trying to get to the corner, and then you've got a straight shot to the basket. But I think it was final round. Noah just decided, you know what? Let's just go for it and see what happens, and just decided to go straight for the basket, cut the corner entirely. And
how close did he get?
Sorry?
How close did he get?
He was putting for eagle. Yeah, he must have been top of the bank.
Yeah, that's always a conversation on that hole, because it's a dog leg and you're already throwing over the top anyway. Yeah, it's really not much farther to the basket than it is to the landing zone. But the big thing there is, as you guys are both familiar, but the landing zone is very small.
Yes.
The green is very small. The landing zone is much, much, much more forgiving than the green. You're landing on an area that's barely even the size of Circle 1 if you're going for it. I think I made it. I tried to do that, but I landed I didn't go far enough left. So I landed in a midway taper. I don't remember if that was in practice or in the round, but
yeah.
it's much farther left than you would think from the tee.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're throwing over OB with the
Yeah.
trees would be on the left-hand side. And then if you go long, you're out over the barbed wire fence into the road, which is OB.
Mhm.
So like you say, trying to get the hyzer or the fade into to kind of land in the longest part of the fairway, you know, and you can't just go
Yeah.
straight and expect it just to drop and land. You've got to actually get the angle right as well as the distance.
Yeah, and the toughest thing about that with a blind shot like that, and when you're throwing it so high, is like the disc is going to be in the air for so long, and you know your tee shot, you're tucked back up against those trees, and then
Yeah.
you're throwing out into wind. So the wind that you feel is obviously going to be different than the wind at the green, and then when the disc is in the air that long, the wind can change while it's in the air.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I mean, it's kind of a roll of the dice when a green is that small to go for it. I mean, even just hitting the landing zone that's, you know, what, 10 times the size of that green,
Yeah.
you know.
That's one thing that's
A bit of
always
luck
amazed
involved.
me. And it just, you know, how you can have that much control over a disc. Like as soon as it leaves your hand, the wind could decide, nope, you're going to go right now, or you're going to go left, or I'm going to push you down. Like to still be able
Yeah.
to have that much control and faith in your disc and skill level to
Mhm.
mitigate all those factors and still get it to land where you want it to land. Like that just still just blows my mind.
And that,
Yeah, well,
Ben,
one
would
tip, I'll tell you a big difference in conversation, I think, from that you hear from advanced level players versus, and particularly like experienced, like longtime MPO players or even like pro masters players, is you'll see them like using the wind. Like the wind just becomes an obsession, right? Because it's so much more of a factor in our game than it is in ball golf, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And so you'll always try to avoid putting yourself in any situation where the wind is a maybe, right? So
Okay.
like for instance, like let's say you have a cross breeze, right? Maybe from right to left. If you were to throw the disc you know, on hyzer where the bottom of it is exposed, then the wind will lift it,
Mhm.
then like a lot, you know, if it's a lot of wind.
Yeah.
If you throw it, you know, anhyzer towards the wind, then you're guaranteed that the wind will knock it down.
Right.
But then the mistake that you'll hear an advanced player say is that they'll try to throw it flat so that the wind won't affect it. But then the problem is a touch of Annie and it gets knocked down into the dirt.
Mm.
And then a
Right.
touch of hyzer and then it gets a lift. And those are like extremely different outcomes based on you trying to keep it flat. Whereas
Right.
I think most experienced players will like either play for the lift or play for the knockdown and like commit
Right.
to one or the other, right? The
Yeah.
knockdown being easier to control, you know, if you have the height for it, that's usually the better option. But yeah,
Yeah.
those are the things that it's like, just don't try to throw a flat shot, you know.
Yeah.
If you
If
have-
there's wind, don't make that decision.
There you go.
Yeah,
Pro
exactly.
tip.
Try to
Yeah.
know what the wind is doing, like, and use it, right?
Yeah. Well, I want to say, Ben, too, you coming out to that tournament and Casey and knowing everybody there, that was my first time. Well, I did get to go out to TCO, but of course, with the different courses and that, it was harder to see some of the pros, but to see you guys playing was pretty amazing. But then what we got to see afterwards is we did the Gander Slander. Calvin had hosted that, and you guys got up there. And now I was sitting down watching the Gander Slander. And for those who don't know what that was a whole bunch of little cutout geese, not even little, they were big, were put all around the basket on hole 18. And hole 18 is a raised shot. And we were expecting that Ben and Casey and some of the other pros were up there. They were going to throw discs and just knock these things down like it was Cupid dolls at a carnival or something like that, knocking down bottles. And we were surprised to see that you guys were throwing from up there and you guys were threading the needle and not hitting any of them at times. And I think we were even in all wholeheartedness, just with a smile on our face, booing you guys just to give you a hard time and to razz you up. But that was our experience from down there. We were loving it. What was your experience from the top of the hill? And have you ever done anything like that before?
Oh man, yeah, that was a blast. No, definitely haven't done anything like that before. It was awesome. It was just hilarious. Like we're all good friends up there, and you know it's after the round, right? So there's always like that cathartic feeling when you finish an event or a tournament round where it's like all of the round tension that you just let it go, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was nothing but good vibes, and just the concern of throwing our arms out was the only thing. But when the boos started, it just killed us laughing. It was the funniest thing to hear the boos. We loved it.
Oh, that's
We were
good.
booing each other as well. Like as soon as someone would miss, we're like, boo!
Were you guys amazed that, like, cause you were like going in between geese that were maybe this far apart? I couldn't believe that was happening.
Yeah, for sure. It seemed like if the game was like to throw between the geese, we would have been legends, you know. But
Yes.
it's like it felt like you were bowling and your ball went through the pins without hitting them. You know, it's like how was this happening over and over again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't remember. Do you know who the first one was to hit one? And did you guys celebrate, or how did it go up there?
Oh, it was me. Yeah.
Oh, it was you.
We were keeping. Yeah, we were. Noah and Casey and I are not even a little bit uncompetitive with each other. We're definitely keeping score, or at least I was, because I was hitting the most. So.
Oh,
yeah.
nice. So we could thank you for all the prizes that everyone won, because you were the one who was hitting them so we could win.
Yeah. Yeah. Casey was definitely missing the most, but yeah, he didn't.
Awesome, Ben. Well, we want to move it along too is last year's Falcons flight, and talk a little bit about that, because one of the things we're doing, the Park Pro boys put on the CDGT Canadian Disc Golf Tour last year. You participated in 3 of the events, one of them being Falcons flight. And we were hoping, depending on what they're doing this year with it, is to kind of do a fantasy draft. So we want to talk to players like you, because we're hoping that you're going to be at those events, and we're going to want to pick you and hope you're going to win. But yeah, so Falcons flight last year, we watched the coverage that Park Pro put out. You're commentating on there. It seems like an amazing event. Tell us a little bit about your experience at Falcons flight.
Oh man, this will be redundant for folks who heard me after the tournament, but yeah, it's unlike any other place that we have in Western Canada. Not necessarily from like a course design standpoint. You know, you think of a place like Bailey's Crossing, like it's pretty similar from a, you know, just a golf standpoint and environment standpoint. But there's just a lot of emotion that you feel just driving in to the grounds at Aspen Meadows. It just feels like hallowed ground, you know, and not necessarily because of the level of play that's happened there over the years, but it's almost just you feel all the volunteer work that's gone in. You know how much all the folks that help out around there, you know how much people care about it, and so it just makes you care. You know, that feeling of people caring and being grateful for it is just, it's very contagious, right? So things are important when people make them important, right? So that event just feels like the most important. So I don't know. I grew up churched, and so there's this like, I don't know, just this feeling of like reverence. I don't know. You just get those like similar emotions that get built up like almost in a religious way. Just being there. It's like, that's our church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, you know,
Watching the Masters this past weekend, right? So at Augusta, you know, people will do anything just for the chance to go walk around that course. And at any point of the year, not during the tournament, whatever, people would do anything just to go walk around and just to experience being there. And Aspen Meadows kind of has that kind of vibe where it's just being there feels really cool. So
that's, you know, just the way you word it, and
Yeah.
even watching it on coverage, you can get that sense. You know, Matt is a master with his words and his opening statement there before it. Like he really captures it, and you know, you can feel like your heart welling up, and you know, and your eyes welling up, and all of this. And I've never even been there yet. And Darryl and I, you know, we understand that you have to be quick on the trigger finger if you're not up at that invited level, like a previous winner maybe or something like that. But so we're going to be ready to try and get in it this year if we can, to be part of all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's the intro that Park Pro did was unbelievable. It even made my wife cry, and she's not the biggest disc golf fan. But yeah.
Yeah, we've had previous guests on before that have said that like you just described, like it's more than just the disc golf. It's the environment, it's the camaraderie of everybody, it's the community that you know, once you drive through those gates, like you said, it's like a big community that all just comes together.
Yeah, it's definitely been a big part of me being successful there, right? I won there in 2021 and then again in 2023. And both times it's just like I've just been felt freed up to like play my best golf just because I don't know, it almost takes the pressure off. People always talk about trying to play without expectations and like trying to play without putting expectations on yourself. And there's something about, I guess, just when the golf you're playing doesn't feel like the most important thing, it just makes that easy, So you're like, no matter how I'm playing today, like I actually am just grateful to be here, and not like you're not like trying to convince yourself that that's the truth. It actually is the truth. Like truthfully, no matter how you play, you're really grateful for the opportunity to play. So it just frees me up, for me personally at least. It frees me up to play in a way that I can't at other times, I guess.
That's awesome. Yeah, you word that so well. Now, if we can we talk a little bit about the tournament? Because as you said, you won it in 2023. And I have a little bit of, from us watching it and how excited we were seeing everything unfold. The one thing we didn't see because it wasn't in coverage on the first round, but Miguel, who we've had on the show, went out and shot a super hot -7 first round. And you had come through with a -4 at the end of that round. So 3 strokes back. Now, knowing that tournament and everything else, knowing that you'd won it at that point there, are you feeling like, hey, first round's in the books, not too worried? Or was that kind of a gap that was starting to be a little bit of a worrisome gap that early in the tournament?
Definitely not a worrisome gap at all. -4, I think, is probably the best. To that point, was probably the best round I'd ever had on that east side. Casey and I travel together a lot, and so we always talk about, what it'll take to win, right? So typically it's like, as long as you're -2 on the east side, you're in it. Like you're okay. Fine. And someone will always shoot -5, 6, 7, but you really just need to be -2 or better to hang around. So honestly, -4 was ahead of that pace that I had in my mind. When I won in 2021, we had said you need to shoot -2 on the east side, but you need to shoot -10 on the west side. And in 2021, that's exactly what I did. I shot -2, -10, -2, like according to the prescription, and was able to take it down. And so coming out of that first round, at -4, I was real happy.
Yeah, you were feeling good about that, because then, and it obviously showed, because then things kind of flip-flopped there in round 2, right? Because Miguel went out and shot the -4, and then you shoot a -10, and then that was like the hot round for the day there. And now things are a little bit different, where you were the one who was a little bit behind on day 1, day 2. Now you're the one that's ahead. So going into round 3, you had to be feeling good at that point.
I wouldn't say I was happy to be leading, but it's so easy for strokes to go both directions on both of those courses, honestly. Like you can bogey, double bogey every hole, and every hole can be birdied, and there's even some eagle opportunities out there. So you definitely don't ever feel great with a lead until there's more strokes leading than there are holes left, is when you can finally start to feel good. But at the beginning of the rounds, no. I felt better that it was me and Miguel than it would be if it was Casey that was the closest person. Like Miguel and I are a little, like, we're closer in skill level, whereas Casey just has that like Terminator feeling. He's just not the person you want behind you,
Right.
So it felt good to have the padding on Casey, but so I was happy with that. But
how did you feel going into that last round with the win? Is it, like, do you like going into the last round with the win, with the lead?
With the lead? Yeah, I mean, I guess it's definitely better than not having the lead. Yeah. So it's not a position I've been in a ton, honestly. Yeah, I mean, I've been playing, like, as you said earlier, like since 2009, and I haven't gotten a ton of wins. It's honestly not until the last few years that, like, as my body's gotten a little bit more run down and I don't throw as far as I did, it's like that's taken some pressure off. And then now I play better because I don't come into tournaments with a bunch of expectations.
Right.
And I also, maybe a bit of a tangent, but several years back, I think my first, I want to say, let's see, till 2018, I'd only ever won twice. So my first 9 years of playing PDGA tournaments, I'd only gotten 2 wins. I won a C tier in Fernie that I backed into and didn't even know I'd won until they added up the scores.
Okay.
And then I won BC Provincials as a B tier here in 2018. I think that was my second win that I'd ever gotten. But up until then, yeah, I'd been in positions to win over and over and over again and never been able to. But yeah, I'd been mentoring Casey since I met him here and was just like, you have to play tournaments, like you're so obviously talented. And I'd been in this like big brother, like mentor role to him since he had been playing. But at a certain point, he was just winning everything and I still wasn't. But yet I was the one who was still giving the advice out, you know? And it kind of dawned on me, it's like, you know, I throw just as far as you do and, you know, but you're winning. So like maybe I should be the one asking for the advice instead. Like obviously there'd been a few tournaments where he had won like clearly because of like mental edge and just playing better, smarter golf than me. But we were having a discussion about like when you watch, like even when we watch pros who are way better than us play, the mistakes that they're making are so obvious from the outside, you know, but obviously for them, they don't see it, you know, and it was like, we were on a long drive and it's just like, well, what am I doing here? Like, I've got a really great player and I've never asked him, like, what am I doing that I should be changing, you know? And he gave me, so I asked, I was like, what am I doing? Like, you must watch the things that I do that you just shake your head and you're like, what are you doing? And he did not even have to think or hesitate. He was just like, whoa, and just
he's like, I've been waiting for you to ask this question for weeks.
Yeah, and he gave me like 2 or 3 things like immediately. And one of them in particular was just that he's like, oh, you know, during a round when someone else is doing something distracting or there's something weird going on, you know, you'll just pretend like you're not distracted or you'll pretend like it's not bothering you instead of like taking the minute to reset. You'll just rush and go through it and pretend like you're not distracted. And that one piece of advice, along with a couple others, I just started winning like right away. It makes all the difference in the world just to like turn around and ask somebody like, what am I blind to? You know, like yeah.
Well,
really
sounds like Casey's the ultimate partner, because, you know, one thing that I struggle with when I go out with, you know, my girlfriend and other people is, you know, I find it hard to not say, oh, if only you just threw it over here, or, you know, what you could do, like you're offering that advice, even though I have no experience, but he's obviously that great of a partner that he knows, you know what, I'm not going to give you advice unless you ask for it. So when you asked for it, he was ready to give it.
Totally.
But also I was going to say was, do you think the fact that you had those leads or you were in contention, but you couldn't, you know, get it over the finish line, was that mentally that you were kind of falling short, or was it technically that you were falling short? Like you knew what you wanted to do, but you just weren't able to execute it? Or were you mentally executing the wrong shot?
Yeah, I mean, definitely mental things. There's some physical things that I've gotten better at for sure. Getting that short course installed in town made my approach game a lot better. So like when that went in and I was playing more with my kids, I was getting just a lot of reps in of throwing short backhand shots. Whereas for the first 10 years, my like little short approaches, like if I was between a drive, if I couldn't throw a power backhand or a jump putt, I threw forehand. So all my pitch shots, I threw exclusively forehand. And the little approach nose up, you know, Paul Ulibarri style backhand, I just didn't have it.
Right.
So that definitely made a big difference just for getting up and down on par 4s for birdies. Years of playing like the Lethbridge tournament where I would, you know, throw it 100 feet past my playing partners, and then I'd get a 4 and they'd get a 3, and it was like, oh, you know, the distance at a course that I thought would suit my game, it just never did. because that approach
Right.
game was just lacking.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a thing that got better. But yeah, it's mostly just mental. There's like I often tell people like newer players when they're talking about getting better at putting, you just notice like people don't struggle mentally with 5-foot putts, and they don't struggle mentally with 50-foot putts. But somewhere in between, there's always a distance where the opportunity for failure is like much bigger than the excitement of the opportunity of success, right?
Right.
So on a 5-foot putt, neither of them matter, right? There's no success and there's also no worry of failure.
Yeah.
But as you start to move back, the fear of failing becomes a thing before the excitement of success happens, because when you get to like 40 feet, suddenly you're like, this would be sick if I make this, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And the excitement is there, right? But I had a round in Lethbridge with Christian Dietrich. You know who that is?
No.
No.
Oh, he was at one point, I think, top 10 in the world by rating. He's the best player in the history of the state of Montana.
Okay.
He's a lawyer, so he doesn't get around and play very many tournaments, but he's one of those guys that, like, if he had toured, he could have been, for sure would have had the ability to tour. But just because of proximity, I played quite a few rounds with him. And so he came out to Lethbridge one weekend and he was just dominating all of us, like a younger Casey. And, we were all having a big battle for second, and he was, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 strokes clear of the rest of us. And his putter, you could have eaten off of his putter at the end of the weekend because it had not touched the ground. Like, 45 feet in, he hadn't missed a single thing. And there were I think we were on hole 15 at Nick Sharon. And he made I want to say like maybe a 15, 16-foot putt into a little bit of a headwind. And he was like, yeah, and like gave a big fist pump. And I was giving him the gears when we were walking the next tee. I was like, you're awfully excited about that 15-footer for a guy who hasn't missed from 45 all weekend.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, that's as good as you can do from there.
Right.
And I was like,
Right.
Yeah.
Like, this is the difference between you and me. It's like he was excited about making the 15-footer because you have to have respect for what you're doing, right? Like, it is hard. Like, even though you want to just believe that it's a given, but it isn't. You got to be proud of the easy things. So that just the awareness behind that and finding ways to tell myself a story that was different, that like, this is going to be incredible when I make this, on the short putts has made just a huge difference for me on inside the circle putting.
Wow.
We went on a little bit of a detour there from Falcon's flight, but you're definitely opening my mind to a lot more of the mental side of the game. Yeah.
And we're even seeing it, Ben, in the comments, Kristen Swirls, Brendan, everybody is loving what you're telling us. And thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Those are the things I constantly think about, like trying to find ways into tricking yourself into doing better.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. Well, I would be remiss. I think I want to dig more into this type of thing, but let's just close out Falcons. Let's just give that a close here. So you're almost at the end. You've got a few strokes. One of the things that was kind of nice was that you commentating for Parked Pro. Normally we would say, hey, when did you know you had that win? When did you feel comfortable or confident? But I think you kind of shared it on there. So was it kind of the last 2 holes was when you finally were able to take that breath and realize, if I just play clean, I'm good?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's no guarantees about playing clean there. So you can't even really say that to yourself, because, you think about those holes down the stretch, like 15 with the OB along the side. There's no safe way to play that, you can't. And then same 16, there's trouble all the way down. And then 17, there's OB. So it's not until there's so few holes left that even if you play dirty, you're still going to win.
Right.
Right. So, yeah, I think by 17 for sure, I think I had enough that even if I'd gone to OB on 17, that I was still good.
Yeah.
I think your quote was, I could jump putt down the fairway and I knew I would still have it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I would consider it.
Yeah, you would. Well, no, it was awesome. And then even, your recognition of Rudy and your kind of your acceptance speech of the championship and the trophy there. And that, like, you were talking about crying earlier. You almost had me crying there too, thinking about that. Cause it's just like you were able to have that win, have that competition, and then just bring it right back to how important that tournament is and what that means to Alberta, Western Canada, and probably, if the Eastern Canadians get out here, they'll appreciate it just as much as everyone else.
Yeah, for sure. In 2021, when I tapped in that putt, it was first A-tier win of my life, and like really out of the blue for me at the time. Like I still was at the point where I hadn't done much winning, but I had done a lot of playing, a lot of traveling, a lot of time away from, wife and kids. And so as soon as I tapped in 2021, I just bawled. I just, so much emotion from like years before, the waterworks came like unstoppable. But this time, like I felt a lot more gratitude, and a bit calmer. Definitely some emotions watching the intro that Matt did.
Yeah.
And thinking about Rudy. But yeah, just a lot of disbelief, like being a little surprised that it happened again. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on that, because it was wonderful to watch and good to see you. And we did say we aren't quite where you are, and I don't know that we'll ever be. We always talk about just getting, maybe by the time we get to MP50, but to know that the 40-year-olds are still kicking some butt out there, that's always a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, you can let go of the expectations a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, there was one other thing that kind of happened at that tournament, though, that we got one side of the story on, and we need the other side of the story. And that is who really did win that wrestling match. We saw a clip of it, but what's up with the wrestling match?
Oh man. I don't know. Miguel and I have known each other for a long time. I think we played together for the first time in BC provincials in Pender Island, I think 2014, maybe something like that. But yeah, we've had maybe 5 or 6 rounds out at Falcons, but 2 years ago when I won, he was kind of in my corner, I think, and like giving me lots of like, you got this, you got this, you got this. Because I was definitely the underdog to Casey at the time, so it's always easy to root for whoever is challenging Casey on any given day. Everyone likes Casey, but it's just you always root for somebody new, I think. So he was just giving me all the pump ups, and then we were up the fair. There's a huge backup on that hole all the time.
Okay.
Because it's a par 5, but everyone thinks they can get there, right? So you wait and you wait and you wait, and then you throw it into the trees right 100 feet off the tee. So yeah, I think the 30-minute backup, we were just, trying to stay warm, stay loose, walk up the fairway. We walked halfway up the fairway in the middle, and then back then we started, I don't know, for some reason, just play fighting to stay warm, and then had a big wrestling match in 2021, and then this time it was the two of us like nip tuck. And we're like, well, do we do it again, like for old time's sake? And it's like, yeah, okay. I definitely won the wrestling match for sure.
Okay, there we go. Now we got the truth. Now
Miguel will tell you the truth.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I don't know. Miguel said something else, because I think they, however Matt and Jesse and Andre did that clip, I think Miguel tried to get his hand in there showing that he won. But hey, now we got the truth, right, Ben?
Miguel, I will say, he's the one that gave me the Benny Buckets name, because we were playing together in 2021 on the West course when I shot -10 then and took the lead in 2021, and I was wearing the bucket hat.
Okay.
And he called me Benny Buckets. Yeah.
That's awesome. So good stuff. And then with Falcons Play, the one other thing, you were commentating for it. How did you enjoy that? Like, you've commentated for Park Pro a few times, so this isn't unfamiliar for you, being on a podcast talking and that. How did you enjoy it, and how did you make sure not to tell everybody what was happening when you're watching yourself?
Well, I mean, it's pretty easy to get lost in the moment when you're watching it on film, and the coverage is just so good, and I don't know, it just takes you right back to the moment that's in front of you, right? And you almost, forget about the future, right? And I remembered exactly how I felt in all of those moments, right? Because I don't know, it's like when things are important to you, just the memory is so strong, so it's easy to be in the moment and remember exactly what you were thinking at that time. So, but yeah, I definitely prefer commentating on rounds that I'm not playing or not winning, at least. Because I don't know, there's just a bit more, I don't know, self-consciousness about it. I'd much rather talk about other people playing, but yeah, doing the commentary is maybe my favorite thing to do. There is not commentating on myself, but commentating on disc golf is, I don't know. I wish that I could just do that for my day job, but
well. We can put that out into the universe and you never know what happens, right? DGPT needs somebody you happen to be going home to North Carolina and there's a tournament there and maybe Benny Buckets is on the mic.
Hey, I sent them a resume. I applied. They were hiring someone for the commentary in Finland with the events they had in Europe last year. So they posted, and I had time away from work, so I was like, hey, I could maybe go do that and talk to the family about it. And then so I applied for the job, but
not this time.
Not this time. Maybe next time.
No, they went with someone, I don't remember, Paul Macbeth or something. I don't know.
Oh, why would they do that for? That guy doesn't. He doesn't have the personality you have. Come on.
Yeah. No, I think Charlie Eisenhood, actually got the gig. He definitely had a better resume.
Oh, there you go. Well, Ben, moving along to your 2024 plans, when we took a look, and maybe it is due to your work schedule, and that is that we saw that you've just got the one event planned right now, and that's the one down in Sandpoint, I think at Caliber, is it?
High Country Open. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've just got the one. Have you got other things in mind, or are you just holding off for a bit, or?
Yeah, I was just in winter hibernation mode, and the registration game waits for no one. So I'm on the wait list for Big Bear. I'll obviously try to go to Falcon's flight. But yeah, the work thing's a big deal. So I'm back to driving trains. So I'm not going to make nearly as many tournaments as I did a year ago. But like I said, I missed the one this weekend. I was registered for the one here in town, but I missed that. The tournament at the college that happened here in Cranbrook this weekend.
The Rusty one.
Where I don't know if you guys saw, there won't be coverage, so no spoilers, but Casey Hannemeyer shot, I think, his highest rated round and highest rated event of his life, just the tiny little C tier here.
Oh.
He shot a -15 at the college that was 1086 rated.
Wow.
So I'm glad I wasn't there for that beatdown. I don't need that.
There you go. Well, and I think maybe too with some of the tournaments, I would like with Falcons, do you get maybe a free in for winning the previous year's winner gets a entry or no?
Not usually. I was late to registration for Falcons once, and they did make an exception for me and get me in. Oh, the year that I was returning as champion, they did.
Right.
But no. Most events, they have to do it in a fair way, right? Where they, open things up to everyone equally. I think that's the method for most tournaments.
Yeah. Well, no, I think it is as well. And I know we saw that even just with nationals posting here and with the registrations there, I think they've got a spot that's reserved that says last year's champion, that kind of thing. So I think in that case, Casey's not showing signed up, but there's a spot reserved for him if he wants to go.
Yeah, I did see that for nationals.
Yeah. Talking about that event that you have signed up for, the 2024 High Country Open there. I noticed that you had signed up for it, so I went to check out, who else was registered in the tournament. And I was scrolling through the MPO division and I couldn't find your name. So I went back and double checked, and I'm like, I'm sure he said he was signed up for it. So I clicked on it again and double checked and triple checked. For whatever reason, I decided, well, maybe there's another division that he could be signed up for. And then I scrolled down to the MP40 division, and lo and behold, there was your name. Is there a reason that, is that what we're more likely to expect from Ben this year?
No.
Or no?
No, I'm MPO till I die. But the MPO was full when I signed up, so
right.
But there were 2 spots left in Masters, and
if you qualify, you
so,
qualify.
Yeah, and actually, I didn't realize it either. So I signed up for the MPO wait list, and then I was looking through and saw that there were spots in Masters, and it's like, oh, well, I guess I'll just move to Masters. So,
Right.
Nice.
and I will be more competitive there. Like that event, you probably saw some of the names in the MPO field there with,
Yeah.
Marweed and even Dallin Blanchard. He doesn't tour. He's got like a big family and, a job and all, but he's unbelievable. He almost won Worlds in the James Conrad Worlds.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah. So there's
Yeah.
a really deep field there.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And have you been down to play that course before? Because we had Tristan Pisco was on, and when he was on, we asked him what his favorite course that he ever played was, and he said it was Caliber. He said it was just such a nice course that's close to us and kind of the highest, for pun intended, caliber of course that we've got kind of in the area.
Yeah, it's an hour and 40 minutes from Cranbrook only.
Okay.
But I, for some reason, I didn't make it down there until just this past summer for the first time. And yeah, I was just blown away at how good it is. It's amazing forest, that they say like a course can only be as good as the forest that it's in, Maybe that's just me that says that, but
well, yeah, I did hear you commentate and talk about trees. I think in nationals, you were kind of identifying them as they went through.
Yeah, it's true. That's the remarkable thing about Raptors Knoll is how good that course is for being in such a. It's not much for a forest, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just beautiful big trees and white pine. There's a lot of variety of trees. Like there's tons of different kinds of trees, and it's older and man, the amount of work and professionalism that's gone into mowing the fairways out and decision making. Like that's the big thing too with from a golf standpoint is like holes that force you to make a decision, but the two decisions, it's not obvious what you should do, right? When you're weighing it out, it makes it difficult to commit to your decision because you're still questioning whether or not it's the right one, because it really is a 50-50. And it does that incredibly well. And then for sure, it has the best par fives on it. Two of the par fives would be the best par five I've ever played. So I think par fives are the toughest thing to design for a disc golf course, because either you have so much distance that you can't get there in less than 3 shots.
Right.
Or people can throw up and over and cut corners and kind of just hammer and break the hole in some way. So it's either distance or people find a way to break it. And finding a way to make it so that the fairways are much more advantageous than not on a hole that's that long. It's a lot of work and a lot of commitment and a lot of land, needed for that.
Right.
So you don't see it get done very often.
So
but
and they figured it out
without a doubt.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I don't remember how many par fives there are. There's more than a couple, but maybe 3 or 4, and they're all amazing, like really, really good.
Do you like par fives? Because I know Steve Dodge on Staggered Stance or what Nick and Macho before used to always said that he would never have, if he was going to design disc golf courses, he would never have par fives because he hates watching somebody throw 3 drives just to get to the, there's nothing to it. It's a drive versus another long drive and another long drive just to get to actually, up near the basket. He doesn't think it makes for entertaining disc golf.
I would say he hasn't played those par fives at Caliber, is I think what I would say.
There you go.
Yeah. I don't think I'd played a really good par 5 until that. Hole 1 at Nick Sharon is a really good par 5, but it's kind of what we were talking about earlier, right? It's a quarter of a mile long, so into a headwind. So
right.
If you were to reach that basket in 2 throws, it's like it would be insane. That said, I would imagine that if Anthony Barella came, he would just get there in 2 every time. But, so they'd have to make it longer. But yeah, it's the thing that I was talking about just sheer distance. But I'd never played a par 5 that was really, really good. And even like Casey and I went to Worlds in 2018 in Vermont.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think one of the most liked par fives in the world is the one at Fox Run, hole 7. And I mean, it was somewhat similar to the Lethbridge one with just a bit tighter OB where, it's possible to get there in 2, but it's just distance. Is the primary intrigue. So yeah, I don't know. Those par fives are perfect. They really are.
Okay.
Well, you know what? That's just we're always putting together a list of the courses that we want to go and play, and now we're getting multiple guests telling us how wonderful that course is. Now, I don't know, they've got. We heard that they have multiple baskets, multiple tees, so there's got to be a spot for you and I to play too, Darryl, and we can cut that par 5 down into something that's a little more manageable for us and still enjoy our time. But it's definitely going on the list now.
Yeah, the short tees are great there. I played with my son who was 12 or turning 12 right then. He had a good round there, and really enjoyed himself. So
nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we played on his birthday. Yeah.
Oh, that's all right. Good. Well, Ben, one of the other things that we want to kind of move into is we've talked to our listeners and they wanted to dive into professional mindsets and trying to get an idea as amateurs and some of the listeners as amateurs, what do we do the way we think about it and how do you think about it? And what we thought would be a good example is that Darryl and I are going to be going to spring runoff and we're going to get a chance for the very first time to play Nicholas Sharon and Aperture. And we're going to go down in about a month from now. Yeah. So for us right now, what we're normally doing is we're heading out for our Rundle League on Thursday, playing around, maybe playing around at Hermitage or Rundle on the weekend, throwing a few putts during the week. That's kind of what our normal routine would be. But if you were a month out from a tournament like that as a professional, what are you thinking and how are you preparing for a tournament?
Yeah, I mean, a month out, I'm mostly just concerned with trying to make sure that I'm healthy at this point. And then trying to at least get putting into form. Putting seems to be the thing that you need a month of practice to be ready to do it consistently and to trust it. That's for me at least. The throwing has always been somewhat natural for me, so I don't ever worry about the throwing. And then, I mean, of course, so for me going to Lethbridge, that's a course I've played a lot, so I wouldn't experience a lot of like the need to mentally prep for it. It's like I know my way around there, and
if you were to go and play a course blind, do you have like a minimum number of practice rounds you like to get in? Like, is it just kind of like you play one or two, you think you've got it, and then that's all you need to do?
Yeah, it depends on the course. So most courses, I don't worry too much about it, about getting too many practice rounds in on.
Right.
And then I'm more worried about being fresh because lots of times, at my level, right, it's like I don't have the time to go and be there for hours ahead of time or a week ahead of time. So yeah, I'm mostly yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And when you do go out and you do a practice round and you're out there, what's your approach to a practice round? Like, so for Darryl and I, we might throw like a round and maybe one or two extra drives. Do you kind of find the areas where you think you're going to have the most challenge and practice those more than others? Or how do you go about a practice round before a tournament?
Yeah, if it's a new course and I get the practice round in, I'm mostly trying to think about, like, I wouldn't play the whole round out for score, right? So I played a practice round in Kamloops with Will Schustrick in maybe 2010 or 2011. The night before, he didn't know the course, and I was like, oh, I saw him in the park, and I was like, hey, Will Schustrick, I'm a random guy. Can I play with you? And he's like, do you know the course? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, okay, let's go. And yeah, and so I noticed with him is like he was throwing bad shots, and then he would just pull his shot out. He'd look around, figure out where he wanted to be, and then practice from there. And I was like, oh, I noticed you're not playing, your shot out. And he's like, well, why would I practice from that bush? I don't plan on being in it tomorrow, And I was like,
Fair
oh,
enough.
well, fair enough. and he wasn't in the bush the next day. So that's definitely a thing, is like, walking to spots and thinking about where do I want to get, and then practice from there. Like whether or not you threw there in the first shot or not, like go and practice from where you plan on being, not from where you are during the practice round.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because you're right. Like, oh yeah, I threw it in the lake, so now I'm going to stand by the OB right on the edge of the lake, and that's going to be my second throw. Well, that's not where I want to be. So why would I even practice there? I'll deal with that if I do go there, but that's not where I want to be.
Totally. So yeah, not playing your practice round for score, because practice rounds aren't for score. Having a practice round for score just, it gives you an expectation, a thing to compare it to, either positively or negatively. It's not really helpful. So yeah, that's a big one.
And I'm guessing from us talking earlier there that you would probably say, when it comes to the putting side of things, is don't go back and do your 50-foot putts. Don't go back and go up and do your 5-foot putts. Find that middle zone where you're going to need that extra confidence. And is that where you would set up for your practice putts?
I might not have the best putting practice routine. I definitely just practice from all over and do whatever. Putting's just so much about feel that, like, I don't know. I try to just try to get it going and try to build some confidence in some way. And if that's long ones, then try to bang a bunch of long ones. And if it's, short ones, I feel like I can hurt my confidence more than I can build it. So yeah, I do Ricky Wysocki talks about this, that when he goes out to practice, he tries to make like 3 60-footers in a row, and then he feels good for the round, right? So I don't know.
Make me feel good as well.
Yeah, it's just, but like if you step up to 25 feet and you're practicing and you're missing half of them, it kind of has the opposite effect.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's good. So I guess to cap that part off, is there any like last piece of wisdom on the pro side that you could send for us to say, okay, you guys are going to Nicholas, even if it's just about the courses, something that we can take with us is we're going to Nicholas Sharon, we're going to Aperture. What do we need to know?
Well, hey, you guys, I actually have to go and get on a train.
Right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that's awesome. That is perfect.
Yeah.
It's a good ending to the episode.
Well, that's good.
That's
well,
what you call a hard out.
Yes, perfect. And we will give you that hard out. We appreciate you sticking through with us, Ben, for everything there. We have a couple other things like a Desert Island Disc we want to throw you. Maybe we can throw that in the chat and put it up.
It's a GT banger for sure every time.
GT banger. Jawbreaker?
Yeah. No. Z plastic.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ben. We appreciate your time and everything you gave to us. And we will definitely look to catch you at one of the courses.
Okay. Thanks, you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet.
Okay, bye.
Darryl.
There you go.
Man, that is a guest that we could talk to for hours. And the first one that's had to leave because he has to catch a train too.
Yeah, literally. He's not catching a train. He's driving the train.
He's driving a train. If
it was
not
going anywhere unless he goes. So
yeah, if it was anybody else, we'd think they were putting us on, right? They'd be like, "Oh man, I just need to get off this show." But with Ben, we know it's the truth.
Yeah, and we've said this before about other guests that we've had. How it's funny now looking back on it. I feel like I was quite quiet during the interview, but it was just because I was listening to him and everything that he had to say. Like he's very methodical about his insight into the game and different aspects of the game, not necessarily I don't know, just the way that he was talking was very precise about what he had to say, and no faff, as we say. It was concise to the point, and a great guest. Just listening to everything that he said, I was just trying to absorb it.
Yes. Well, and another thing with it too, Darryl, that I was noticing was that, we have this interest maybe because we are newer disc golfers, and we do have Ben and these other MPO and FPO. We have them on a pedestal, and we're always excited about how they're performing in the different events, and we want to learn about them and that. But then, talking to Ben, I kind of wanted to put it a little bit to Falcon's play, but then he went and he would talk about something so deep and kind of profound. And I was like, I just want to throw away the rest of that and just continue down this path. And it just felt like I needed to close it anyways. But it seems like maybe that's something that we can do when we approach a little further with that. And definitely to our listeners is, if you like more of that deeper conversation and the guest is up for it and has that available, I think we can start steering towards that a little more than, hey, how did you do in the last tournament? Right?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. I would be, whether the listeners want it or not, like that, like you said, you can watch coverage, you can look at PDGA to find out what the scores were, you can do all of that type of thing, you can watch countless YouTube videos on people throwing discs, but it's the, how did you feel, what was going on in your head, what's the difference between the years that you've played, what's changed, things like that really make a difference for me.
Yeah. And even just some of the things there that we didn't get too much more into it is specifically about Nicholas Sharon and Aperture in that tournament there. But even the advice of, just not keeping your score for a practice round before a tournament.
Yeah.
Like I want to be like, oh, let's open up that UDIS. That's another round. I want to make sure to get that in there. But really, is that actually helping me when it comes to tournament play the next day? Not at all. Right.
And that's the thing. Whenever we go for practice rounds, how often do we look at a practice round and be like, okay, I got a birdie on this hole, or, I got a par on that hole. I never normally get a par on that. No, we always get to the end and it's, what did you shoot? Oh, it was -2, +3, whatever the score is. And we think that is the result of a good round. Well, I mean, it is, but there's also those little wins that maybe you birdied a hole that you've never birdied before. Maybe you parked a hole. Maybe you made it through a Mando that you never made before. Like, look at those things. I don't know if it's just that we have to justify going out and doing a practice round because we want to have something tangible at the end to say, okay, I did a practice round and I got better because the result at the end was better, rather than just going out, like you said, putting away just don't even think about it. Just go out there. I mean, you might, I guess we have to keep score to a certain degree because you want to know that hole you birdied with, rather than you parred it. But definitely a different way to look at practice rounds for sure.
Yeah. And Mark was actually saying in the comments there, that's using the UDisc activity rounds. We could do that and use that when we're doing this. So you're just kind of getting the recording of being out and on the course.
Yeah.
But another point about that too is how many times have we been out playing a round of disc golf, and sometimes you'll look at me and I'll have a horrible shot, but I'll have a smile on my face. And it's not about where that disc went. It's just that it came out smooth, or it felt good, or it went straight. It just didn't go straight in the direction that I wanted it to go, but the throw itself was clean. And I think that could also be part of that with those practice and prep rounds is, did you get a shot where you needed it to go? Could you throw it from the spot that you're supposed to land and get it within 10 to 15 feet for that putt? Those are the things.
Yeah.
So I love it, man. I feel so deep and like energized just from talking to him about those things.
Yeah. No, I've heard Paul Ulibarri talk about that as well, where if you visualize like a putt or a throw, if you hit everything that you meant, if you visualize, okay, I'm going to putt this, I'm going to aim, second chain link in on the right-hand side, and I'm going to finish with my hand palm up, and I'm going to extend my leg. And as long as you do everything that you did, if it feels like you executed what you did, whether it went in or not, doesn't matter, because you executed what you wanted to execute. The result is, not necessarily irrelevant, but, you did what you wanted to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. I know what you mean. I'm all, It's a shame that we do these at 7:30 at night, because after I always finish talking to our guests, it just pumps me up that I want to go out and play a round of golf now.
Yeah. Well, don't worry. It's staying light longer and longer before you know it. We'll be able to play that round afterwards, or at least start it and then maybe move to glow discs by the end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. To try some of those things out. Well, it looks like we got a lot of activity there in the comments too, if you want to look at that. But I figured, let me just recap a little bit more about that 3-hole disc dice challenge that we did. We'll just give that quick. So we did another one there out at Hermitage. We did holes 7 to 9. We kept the Instagram live running so that we could play Wally's Way, which was, I think, entertaining. You managed to show everybody what a bird can do when a professional Berg player throws one. And you
Berg for the win. Berg through the gap. Berg to putt.
Yeah, we
Eagles
both
a
threw a
birdie.
couple drives, and I think I missed Mandos on both. I know I missed Mandos on both of them. One of them, I don't even think I hit the first one. But you were able to go out and put the Berg right there in between, just after the third Mando, and then go for the birdie, I believe, too. Didn't you manage that?
Yeah. Birdie
so-
up. Berg up shot. Berg for the birdie.
Yeah. So back to that. Let us know. We're going to continue to do live content. We want to put as much disc golf out there for you guys as you can, because I know everybody who has been enjoying listening to us is we want to make sure that you get as much chain out, if not more than you need. So if you like the disc dice challenge and you want to be part of it, let us know. If you want us to do something different, like you were saying there earlier, Darryl, was maybe do a ace challenge where we throw discs for 10 minutes or 10 discs and see how it goes. Anything like that. If you got ideas, we'll give it a try. And we're always interested in having listeners join us for some of those things as well.
Yeah. It's absolutely. It's kind of good now, because this is what I envisioned our chat to be in the beginning, but it seems like they're having a whole conversation on their own now. They're talking about having a high-speed LRT train to go down to Calgary to play down there, and everybody's on board. They're going to set up.
Do you mean everybody's all aboard?
What's that?
Is everyone all aboard?
All aboard. They are. Now they're naming the train, I think, or they're naming the group of people that are going to be on this train. It's awesome.
Oh, that's great.
I mean, lots of positivity for Ben in the chat. Everybody, everybody's just kind of echoing our words that Ben's insight was amazing. Everybody enjoyed it. Lots of good advice that he handed out there, and lots of positivity.
Yeah, and we apologize that we didn't get to your questions to ask for Ben just there on the timing. And maybe what we'll do is, if we can send him a quick email or something, and if he's got time at his own leisure, he can drop us a couple answers, and we can always feed them back to you guys as well, whether it's in another episode just to kind of cap it off, or maybe just in a post or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, Darryl, another thing that people have told us, I've actually gotten some feedback from the listeners, and what they've said is that they're missing our course reviews.
Right.
So I think as we get going here, it's going to be time for us to find some new courses and start to do them. So for anybody out there who's just new to listening to the podcast, back at the beginning, Darryl and I were doing course reviews of local courses, and we tried to make them as entertaining as possible. We didn't want the standard just hole one. It's a 250-foot straight throw to the basket. There's one tree in the middle of the fairway. See, I'm already putting myself to sleep here.
Yeah, that's not what we're going to do.
What are we going to do?
Yeah, when we did our course reviews, we wanted to come at it from a different approach. The kind of aim was that if anybody was listening to a review from out of town that never played the course before, it was more about things to look out for, little local pro tips on the course, things like that. Giving our own little review of the course on how we like to play it. We decided that we were going to do 13, I think we counted 13 Edmonton and local area disc golf courses that we should be playing and everyone should be playing, ranging from, small par 5-hole courses that we have set up around the area to 7-9-hole courses, right up to the River City Cup, Hermitage, Rundle, 18-hole courses. But we took a break because the winter started coming. The nights got darker sooner. We didn't get a chance to get out. Then the white stuff came. So we haven't ended it. We are going to get back into it again. Now that the weather's clearing up for us, disc golf is back. We plan a lot of tournaments this year, so we'll be getting out to some of those newer courses that are not necessarily in the Edmonton area, but we do plan on cleaning up the Edmonton area and doing some local reviews of those ones as well.
Yeah, and that was also that feedback that I got, was that the way we were covering it was the person in particular liked hearing it and said if we are traveling, they may not know where they want to go to see another course outside of town. So if we can kind of give that same insight from our point of view of, if it's the course in Nanton on the way down to Lethbridge, or if it is Nicholas Sharon and Aperture, how do two MA40 amateurs feel about it? Because, even as we were talking to Ben about Bailey's, is he did like the course. He liked how well manicured and how well designed it was that way. But from a pro perspective, it was an easy course, which would be nice for me to be able to say. But for us, it is actually a challenging course. So maybe that point of view can help some of our listeners who are in our boat to find courses to play.
Yeah. I was almost going to question Ben when, I was thinking maybe his memory was going, because I didn't know if he remembered which course he was actually playing. I mean, no, this was Bailey's. This is Bailey's Crossing in Devon, that hard wooded course that is quite hard. But
yes.
Yeah. But I mean, like I said, when Casey shoots a -31 and Ben ended up in second with -18 over 3 rounds, I can see how they would think that would be an easy course.
Yeah,
which just goes to show, when you look at some of these other harder courses, when they, squeak out a -5 or a -3, like how difficult those courses must be.
Well, that's it. You start to see these people who are either just making cash on the pro tour or not making cash.
Yeah.
Just the fact that they're able to play that tournament and not go, no, DNF, I'm out of here. Like,
yeah,
it is amazing. So some of those scores, it's like anything else, is people are always want to criticize professional players, and then they forget the fact that, hey, what would happen if we were out there? We can't do that. So respect the talent that's out there at all levels. If you're up there, you've got talent. So
yeah,
definitely. But speaking of the pros there, Darryl.
Nice segue, Jeremy.
Yeah. Speaking of the pros, we should touch base on a couple of the Canadians that are down there playing on the DGPT. And one of the things that was a little exciting to me was Thomas Gilbert in Jonesboro. He's, we've been seeing him having really good rounds here and there, but just not really converting it, aside from the throwdown, the mountain tournament that he was in there, and he got the second place.
Yeah.
So recently here at Jonesboro, he finished 35th, and that was good enough to be in the money.
Yeah, no, it's always exciting to see. Like we said about, our main focus of, or not our main focus, but one of the focuses of our podcast is to make all those Canadian pro names more of a household name. And maybe when you look at some of those, the Nationals or BC Open or whatever, you're going to be looking for those names. That's kind of what we do when we look down at the DGPT, is that we're always looking for the Thomas Gilberts, the Max Rajitniks, just to see how they're doing. And it's always good to see when, Thomas is performing well.
Yeah. And that tied 35, to give you an idea of where that put him in that tournament, was not only was he in 35th place, he was tied with Silas Schultz, Robert Burridge, and Paul Ulibarri. Yeah. So he was among some pretty good company there at 35th.
Yeah. Hopefully that's a sign of things to come. Hopefully, whatever, maybe that was a course that he liked, or, he's just tweaking his game just that little bit extra, and he's starting to move up the table a bit. Hopefully we continue to see him rising up those the standings.
Yeah. And then otherwise, Chantal Badinsky, she was actually off. I think she was going back up to Canada for a little bit. So she did not play in Jonesboro. But Max Rajitnik was there. He finished 78th, and that was another tied position. And he was able to tie with Chandler Kramer, and I wrote it down there, but I'm going to give it a try. I think it's Tomas Heitinen. No, what is it? Tomas?
It's 3 syllables.
Okay, you do it.
Tuomas.
Heitinen?
Tuomas Heitinen. I don't. You got me on the last name. Heitinen.
Heitinen. Yeah, something like that. So, anyways, good for him too. It's good to see Max is playing and placing well too. So that's good for him. So really, the last thing I wanted to say on that is that this weekend coming up here is the Music City Open. Yeah. Down in Nashville. That was the one that Simon won last year and got the guitar.
Yeah.
So this year, Thomas will be down there, Max will be down there, and so will Chantel. So if you guys are watching, and you probably won't see them on coverage, but you can kind of dive into PDGA Live and then look for them in there and see how they're shooting and see what their scores are.
Let's hope we see them on coverage in the second round.
Yeah. So
yes,
then,
Mark, you did miss the Rundle League recap
early on. Did we do the Rundle recap? We'll have to go back and look ourselves. Maybe we didn't do Rundle.
We didn't actually do the recap. We just said that something exciting is happening for one player with the number 1 tag.
Oh, yes.
We recapped it there, but we didn't give a recap on the whole league. But I mean, there was no aces.
No, not that I know
A
of.
record number of people turned out for the league.
I think it was like 113, and that's just first week.
Yeah.
So that was pretty good. So
Yeah.
we do, I guess if Mark's asking about it, we do wish him luck tomorrow against Tim Plamondon and whoever the other two number 1 tag challengers are going to step up against him. So good luck with that, Mark. Hopefully you can hang on to the tag. If not, then we'll welcome you back to play with us again.
Okay. No, we did talk about he was talking about the previous, the round where I shot my PB. That's what he was
we did
about.
talk about that. You can catch that later on that point there. So I guess the other thing too here as we get going, Darryl, and we're getting ready to wrap up, is there any listener questions out there that you saw that maybe we need to answer or anything like that?
I don't know if anybody has any questions for us. They did put a few questions in for
Ben.
For Ben.
Yeah, and like we said, is we'll
Brendan.
make sure to pass them on and throw them out to Ben and see if he can give us a few answers that we can bring back to you.
Yeah, there was a few funny comments or a few nice comments from people. One that stood out for me was the fact that it was live and Ben was coming and going. And we said about, maybe post-producing or, doing some sort of editing. Brendan just mentioned, he said, "Don't worry, Ben, at least they won't have to dress up as you and retell your story." Brendan,
I never dressed up as Brendan. I just took a look and said, "Hey, what would it look like if I had an epic mustache?" That's all I did. I just asked myself. That's all it was.
Yeah.
So.
And yeah. No real questions for us. If you have any questions for us, how many putts is Jeremy doing before spring runoff?
50 a day.
50
I think that's a good number. I'm going to start just putting because I think, the one thing I know is that I've had days and moments throughout the season where my putting has been good. And when it's good, you even notice. You even
when
actually
good,
say
you shoot
something
-8 at Hermitage.
Yeah, I guess so. That's
exactly. Right. Yeah. Put it in the Ash is joined. Hey, hey, Ash.
Yeah.
Let us know in the chat how many people in the chat right now are going to spring runoff.
Yes,
because we
do know of a
we
few.
know there's a big we know there's a big Edmonton contingent going down there.
Yeah, and when we get down there, we're hoping that we can connect with some of the listeners, and we're thinking with the Edmonton contingent, we've mentioned it a few times, we should try and find there's a pub that's kind of close to Nicholas Sharon, and maybe we can all get together and have a beverage, have some chicken wings, something like that.
Yeah. The Parked Pro account, I'm not sure who it is. I'm guessing it's probably Andre or Jesse. I'm guessing it's not
Matt, maybe.
Well, the comment is, when are we coming to the Kootenays to play? And I think Matt is in Edmonton, so I don't think he would be saying coming to the Kootenays.
Oh, true.
So I'm guessing it's Andre or Jesse.
Well,
when are we going to the Kootenays, Jeremy?
Well, you know what? It sounds like there is a bit of an hour 40 from Cranbrook to Sandpoint, Idaho for caliber.
Yeah.
3 courses. One of them that can be a nice pitch and putt, one of them that's a nice normal course, and one of them that we might only be able to play once a day and play nothing else, is from the sounds. When Ben had mentioned it, when he said, I think it was Wycliffe, when he said 2.5 hours to play around.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah. Why is it? Yeah, I got a bit scared of that. Why does that take such a long time to play? Hey, Andre.
Yeah. So maybe Andre could tell us on that. But 2.5 hours is a legitimate amount of time to play around there. That elevation that would be the most elevation we would have ever covered in a course if we go out there. The one thing we forget about is, or people, well, I think everybody out here knows, but Edmonton's got hills. Minimum 2.5 hours. That's maybe 2.5 hours for Ben, right? With his talent and his skill.
Yeah. Exactly.
But that's the thing in Edmonton, right?
For discs.
No, like we think, we went to Bailey's. It was pretty hilly. We had to climb up a hill and go down a hill once. And then it's like, no, it's not anything. That's not elevation at all. We're pretty flat out here, right? For that.
No, exactly.
So once we get out to some of those big courses, we're going to find out.
Yeah. I don't know. We might have to make a trip out there, Jeremy.
And I'm sure too, maybe Ben, maybe Andre, maybe they can show us the ropes.
Try and find a weekend or some time out there when we can get, we'll definitely send, we'll put it out there when we're heading out there so that if anybody wants to come along with us, or meet us out there, should I say, meet us on the course and have a round with us.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing we cannot forget, Darryl, at this point, and I think maybe you probably saw something in there that we can use, maybe, possibly, is we need a secret word, my friend.
Oh, we always want a secret word, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Does anybody in the chat have a secret word from today's episode? I mean, it would be too obvious just to use Benny Buckets.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that might be too obvious. Is there anything else that you had heard through there? And I was going to say, I seen the rusty train and everything else, but that kind of fits with a theme that we've already done in the past. But
yeah, I was just going to mention the rusty train. What did they call it? Mark called it the Rusty Train Gang, or Jeremy Koopmans called it the Rusty Train Gang.
Yeah.
Mark called it Rusty McTrain Out, which I kind of like.
Sure, I like it. Rather than do too much. Like when you get something as gold as that, that's almost like Bodie McBoatface when they did that. Do you remember?
Yeah,
that happened.
Yeah, I remember that.
All right, and you get the train out kind of with the rhymes with the chain out.
Head games, trains. I like
head games too.
Yeah,
head games and Rusty. What do you think?
Rusty McTrain Out. I think it's on point. Chain train.
Yeah.
Okay, last week I think you made me pick.
Well, I'm all for it. I'm all for Rusty McTrain.
Rusty McTrain Out.
And you don't even have to put them all in a row. Just find a way to word in the comment to have Rusty McTrain and out in there.
You know what I'm actually kind of impressed with is when the people do comment on our video, and I apologize last week if anybody did try and leave a comment on the video. I turned off commenting, so commenting wasn't available for a couple of days. But I'll make sure that comments are available as soon as this video ends. But what I'm impressed with is that people do, manage to get the secret word into a sentence. They, I've spoken to some people that say that, they try and put it in the sentence and they read it back to themselves, whether it makes sense. And then they finally post it. But then you answer them and then you put it in a sentence as well. So not only do you have to try and get it in a sentence, if we get 4 or 5 comments, you have to do it 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, well, I try to, or at least the other thing, I've tried to use it in a sentence back in my comment, or sometimes I'll try to pull something else out of the episode as well to throw back to kind of keep the clandestine comments together. But the one thing that amazes me, Darryl, is sometimes when we check those comments, I read it and it doesn't click for me at first that the secret word is there. That's not what I'm looking. I'm like, oh, what does this person have to say about the episode? Because some of the comments, they're actually tying it into a nice comment about the show and slipping in the secret word. And I'm like, man, the listeners got skills.
Yeah, we got good listeners.
Yeah.
So Rusty McTrain Out in the comments.
Yeah.
I will turn the comments on.
Yes.
Put it in the chat. Thank you for commenting. It helps to the algorithms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And if anybody's listening that's not subscribed,
why
don't you subscribe to our channel as well? Turn on those notifications and all that type of stuff.
All the stuff the kids are saying on
exactly.
on
all
the
the stuff
tube.
those kids say. Like, share, and subscribe, and whatever else.
Well, and what we have to say too, the last thing here before we get wrapping this up is just thanks to the listeners. You guys have been patient. You've come in here. Thanks to Andre. Thanks to Ash. I feel like I've got my romper room circle in there, and I'm just looking thanks to Mark and Jeremy and Brendan and Kristen and everybody who joined us tonight and were patient enough to go through with that. And I think that we've just learned another thing that we'll take to the next episode and try to have the next guest nice and clean, and we'll get as much time as we can with them.
Yeah.
But until then, Darryl, you got a way to get us out of here?
Well, I mean, we didn't really get to go through the desert island. We didn't really get to go through I was going to play it, but it's too long. We didn't get to do the desert island disc, but I can imagine, maybe, and just trying to think of a hole. If you've ever played Bailey's, what's the one down, or a hole one? I mean, Tristan mentioned that he aced it. So I can imagine Ben stepping up there with that banger GT. Mm-hmm. I know he said that, over the last few years when his age has gone up, his distance has come down, but I'm sure he'd still be able to reach that that green, that basket with the Banger GT. Because
Most
really all he
definitely.
would need to do, as long as he had a nice run up, he could put it out a little bit wide to the right,
Yeah.
give it some nice height. There's a bush right in front of the basket, but that disc would sail right over the tree. It
Yeah.
would be coming in from the right hand side. It would be flying pretty high, and it was going to come in on a nice angle.
Yes, it will. Of
The
course, it
basket
would.
is quite forgiving there. It's going to hit those chains.
Yeah, veteran
and if he
baskets
throws
never
it-
kick him out.
No, if he throws it, it's going straight in. But if I was to do it, or you was to do it, there's only one thing that disc would do.
You got it. It would
It would only
chain
chain
out.
out. Okay, thanks everybody.
We'll catch you next time.
Oh,
We
I had it
appreciate
lined up
y'all.
as well, and I forgot to push the button. Okay, thanks everybody.